It was massive, thick-bodied, and brutally functional, like a flying anvil. When it went down near Kassel in early 1944, it carved a trench into frozen farmland before snapping apart in a cloud of steam and oil. The pilot never made it out. By the time Wehrmacht recovery teams arrived, the wreck was already drawing attention. Not from soldiers, from men in gray coats with no insignia. The Reich had been waiting for this. For months, German intelligence had been tracking reports of a new American fighter appearing in increasing numbers. Not the sleek Mustang that escorted bombers deep into the Reich, but something heavier, louder, harder to kill. Pilots reported absorbing impossible amounts of damage and still returning to base. Anti-aircraft crews complained that it took too many shells to bring one down. Now they had one, or at least, what was left of it. The engine was the prize. The Pratt Whitney R-2800 double wasp was unlike anything Germany fielded. An 18-cylinder, air-cooled radial producing more than 2,000 horsepower, built not for elegance but for abuse. It powered not only the P-47, but also naval aircraft, attack planes, and experimental platforms across the American arsenal. If Germany could understand it, perhaps copy it, perhaps counter it, perhaps exploit its weaknesses, then maybe, just maybe, the balance in the air could be tilted back. The engine was transported under guard to a converted textile factory on the outskirts of Göttingen, now repurposed as a technical analysis site. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed above concrete floors still stained with machine oil from civilian days. Workbenches had been reinforced, cranes installed, cameras mounted. This was not curiosity. This was desperation disguised as method. The engineers arrived in silence. There was Professor Ernst Keller, a veteran aeronautical designer whose career predated the war. He had helped shape early Luftwaffe doctrine, and now found himself watching it crumble. There was Wilhelm Hartmann, younger, sharper, responsible for production efficiency calculations across multiple engine programs. And there was Anna Weiss, officially a materials analyst, unofficially one of the Reich's most capable metallurgists. None of them spoke as the tarp was pulled back. The engine sat there, massive even in ruin. Cylinders bent, but not torn free. Cooling fins warped but intact. The crankcase scarred by shrapnel yet unbreached. Keller stepped forward first. He ran his gloved hand across the casing. Too thick, he said quietly. They began disassembly immediately. Every bolt was catalogued, every component photographed. Measurements were taken twice. Then a third time when the numbers refused to make sense. The crankshaft alone weighed more than entire assemblies in German inline engines. The bearings were oversized. The tolerances were not tight in the way German engineering prized, but they were consistent. Shockingly so. Hartmann frowned as he flipped through his notes. They've designed it to survive mistakes, he said. Anna removed a fractured piston ring and examined the metal under a microscope. She did not smile. This alloy, she said. We can make something similar. In a laboratory. Keller looked at her. And in quantity? She did not answer. They continued. The supercharger system drew particular attention. Two-stage, mechanically driven, rugged rather than refined. The Americans had sacrificed elegance for reliability at altitude. And the result was devastating. The Thunderbolt could dive faster than anything Germany had, absorb punishment, and still fight. But the true shock did not come from the design. It came from the markings. Stamped serial numbers, production codes, inspection marks. Hartmann began arranging the components in order. These codes, he said slowly. They're not batch numbers. Keller leaned closer. They're unit identifiers, he said. Anna checked the documentation captured with the wreck. Maintenance logs, part replacement tags, shipping manifests still tucked into a fire-scorched compartment. Her voice dropped. This engine was built in early 1943. Hartmann looked up sharply. That's impossible. These aircraft only started appearing in numbers months ago. Yes, Anna said. Which means this engine sat in inventory, or was replaced, or was part of a production flow far larger than frontline needs. Keller's mouth went dry. How many? Hartmann began calculating. Factory output estimates, known production facilities, rail capacity, shipping schedules, replacement rates, loss ratios. He wrote numbers on the chalkboard, then erased them, then wrote them again. 15,000, he said finally. At least, engines built, delivered, or in transit behind this one. The room went silent. Someone laughed softly, then stopped. That's absurd, another engineer muttered. We would have seen them. Hartmann shook his head. They don't deploy everything at once, he said. They rotate, they train, they replace without pause. Keller closed his eyes. Germany was fighting a war of scarcity. Every engine was precious. Every aircraft cannibalized to keep another flying. Aluminum shortages, fuel rationing, skilled labor pulled to the front or lost to bombs. And here was an engine designed to be wasted, to be overbuilt. To be replaced without grief. Anna broke the silence. They are not building engines, she said. They are building time. The implications settled like lead. This was not about outperforming German technology. It was about overwhelming it. The Americans did not need perfection. They needed enough. Enough engines, enough planes, enough pilots. Enough factories so far beyond reach that loss did not slow production, it barely registered. Keller stared at the engine again, seeing it differently now, not as a machine. As a message. Days later, a report was sent to Berlin. It was carefully worded, technically dense, emotionally sterile. It did not say we are losing. It said, enemy industrial capacity exceeds replacement thresholds by an order of magnitude. Attritional air defense is no longer sustainable. It was read. Filed. Ignored. The bombing continued. P-47s roared over France, strafing rail yards, convoys, airfields. They dove through flak that would have shattered lighter aircraft. Pilots trusted the engine behind them, trusted that it would bring them home even when half the cylinders were shot through. German pilots noticed something else. When they damaged one, another took its place. Always another. Meanwhile, inside the Gittingen factory, the engineers continued their work. They tested materials. They attempted simulations. They explored whether German industry could replicate the design. The answer was always the same. Not fast enough. Not cheap enough. Not in numbers that mattered. One evening, after a 12-hour shift, Keller remained behind. He sat alone with the engine, now fully disassembled, laid out like an anatomy lesson. He thought of 1918, of another war lost not on the battlefield, but in factories and supply lines. History was repeating itself, but faster. Anna joined him quietly. Do you think they know? She asked. Who? The pilots, the ones flying these. Keller considered it. No, he said. They only know the engine starts and keeps running and brings them home. That's enough, she said. He nodded. That's always enough. In June 1944, as Allied troops landed in Normandy, Thunderbolt screamed overhead, tearing apart German positions with rockets and machine guns. The Luftwaffe, once proud and feared, struggled to respond. Fuel shortages grounded planes. Trained pilots were irreplaceable. New aircraft arrived too late, too few. The war's outcome was no longer in doubt, but it would take months and countless lives before the end arrived. The Gittingen facility was eventually abandoned, bombed twice, evacuated once. The engine parts were scattered, buried, or melted down. The engineers survived. Some surrendered. Some disappeared. Some later wrote memoirs that never mentioned the moment they understood the truth after the war. An American technical team toured captured facilities. In the ruins of that factory, they found a chalkboard still standing, faded numbers. Half-dash erased. Calculations. A single word written beneath them. Unaufhaltsam. Unstoppable. No name was attached. No explanation given. But the meaning was clear. The war was not won by a single battle or a single general or a single aircraft. It was won the moment one side realized the other could lose everything today and replace it tomorrow. The P-47 engine was never meant to be admired by the enemy. It was meant to keep running. And in doing so, it carried an entire nation's capacity for endurance into the sky long after the guns fell silent. That lesson remained. Wars are decided not when the last shot is fired, but when one side understands it can no longer keep up. And sometimes, that realization comes quietly, in a factory, under cold lights, staring at a machine that should not exist in such numbers. That is how the war truly ended for them, not with an explosion, but with a calculation. Moral: the true lesson of this story is that victory is rarely won in a single battle, through a single hero, or with a single weapon. It is earned through endurance, preparation, and the relentless capacity to keep moving forward when others falter. The Americans did not win by building the most elegant planes or crafting the perfect engine. They won by producing enough, replacing losses faster than the enemy could count, and trusting in the resilience of their systems and people. Sometimes, the most decisive victories are invisible, measured not in explosions or glory, but in the quiet hum of a factory, the methodical turning of a wrench, and the understanding that persistence can outmatch brilliance. True power lies in the ability to endure, to overwhelm by sheer consistency, and to keep running when everyone else has stopped. In the end, it is not the flash of a gun or the courage of a pilot that alone decides. The outcome it is the calculation, the preparation, and the unstoppable momentum that determines who can keep up and who will be left behind.